A rock climbing accident in 2005 changed his life forever. We catch up with Matt Kinnie, inspirational para-athlete from Riverview, New Brunswick, on Sports Inclusive. Joined here by Matt Kinnie. Matt, what's your first recollection of getting into the sporting world, and who introduced you to sport and recreation?
Yeah, I guess I got into it. I don't even really remember. I got into it the way everybody gets into it, or most people do anyway. As a kid, I was young. I think I was 4 or 5 getting into hockey. I think that'd be the first sport I really remember getting into. And yeah, just going down to the rink and trying to figure out what the heck this gear is, and get my dad to tie my skates. And I guess that's my earliest memory, and just kind of sitting there thinking, like, what the heck is this game, right? Because you have to learn how to skate, learn how to puck handle, you learn all that stuff at the same time. So yeah, that's my earliest memory getting into sports. So I always played sports growing up. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Big part of my life.
Your family dynamic. A lot of athletes talk about the impact their mom and their dad, but your family, the impact that your siblings had on you. Maybe just discuss your family and their impact in the sporting world and in life in general.
Yeah, I guess I had a normal upbringing, but I also had a very non-typical upbringing as well. I have a sister who's a couple years younger than me who has an intellectual disability. It's kind of like Down syndrome, but something with a real long name that nobody ever really remembers. But it presents like Down syndrome, and I guess it was really shaped my life. It was, it was something that was a struggle for everybody, having to figure out how to deal with, somebody who doesn't look like everybody else, doesn't talk like everybody else, and it really, had an effect on me. I had an older sister as well, and then another younger sister. So we had a big family, and we did all the big family stuff. But a lot of the time it was me and my older sister going off and doing stuff with my dad, and my mom was kind of left back trying to figure out how to deal with my sister. She didn't walk until she was 4. She didn't really talk until she was 5. And yeah, I think it just really impressed upon me early on in my life that life isn't always fair. It's life isn't always easy, and sometimes you just have to kind of make the best of the cards that you're dealt, and and try to figure it out. So I think that made a huge impression on me. But we also did all the normal family stuff, family vacations and travel, and visiting your relatives, and have a big family and cousins and all the rest of it. So I didn't grow up, and I had a lot of friends around me that I don't think felt like I had a really non-normal life. It was just a bit different, a bit more complicated, I guess.
When did you know that sport was going to be an integral part of your life, but also sport, but recreation and the outdoors? When did you know that was going to be your thing?
I don't know. Like, I guess I always thought, I guess it's really interesting, because when I look back on my life, I always really wanted to be really good at something. I really worked hard. I cared what other people thought about me. I kind of had a bit of that champion's mindset of really, you work hard and you get results, but I wasn't really that good at any of the sports that I played, to be honest. I was always on the B teams, and then maybe made the A team the second year. I was always, I played house league a couple times because I got cut from the teams. I had a little bit of success, and I played, football, and I played volleyball, and, but I was just always okay, pretty good, and, wasn't the best at anything, but I was always the hardest worker. And I always thought that if I worked hard enough, I could, get somewhere. And, I'd always finish the endurance part of the practice first and all that stuff. But, I never really put it together. I tried out for the under 19 football team, I remember, in high school, and, I got cut from that. And I thought maybe I could walk on at university in football, and I never really made it that way either. I just never found my sport. But growing up, I was always doing all this other stuff at the same time as I was doing kind of the mainstream sports. I was doing the hikes with my dad on the Dobson Trail when I was 5. I was doing the big canoe trips in Ketchimakuchik National Park. And then into high school, we were, running rivers up in the Restigouche River and camping overnight. And, I think my big first solo trip was me and my my girlfriend, now wife. But, we had just been together for a year, and we were doing 5 days along the Fundy Coast before the road was through there. So it was pretty remote, no cell service and pouring rain and all the rest of it. And I knew that was something I really enjoyed. And I realized, here I can really thrive. I can push my limits. I can, do really well. I can take care of myself. I am, and I really enjoyed it. I worked at a summer camp as well. And I could take groups of kids out into the woods and, I'd have 10 kids in my kind of hands, and I knew what to do. I knew how to light the fire. I knew how to take care of everybody. I knew how to get everybody fed. I knew how to get everybody back in one piece. And that was like, I think it was completely different. It was completely separate, but it just allowed me to thrive. And it was just a completely different side of things. And I thought maybe I could really take what I was trying to do in conventional sport and really push my limits in those other things. So I remember I was just graduating university, getting ready to graduate in my last year, and I was starting to plan to do stuff like hike the Pacific Crest Trail. Like, that was what I was planning for, and obviously my life kind of turned a bit upside down right before I could get to do any of that stuff. But that's kind of the road I was headed down. So anyway, it was interesting.
You mentioned in before about rugby and kind of stepping away from rugby because of your really your enjoyment of that other aspect of sport and the outdoors, because you didn't want to an injury with regards to your knee or blow out a knee in playing rugby. And then obviously 2005 and the accident. It's always difficult to talk about an accident in this case a life altering accident. But what do you remember about that day, and to kind of take us through the events that led to the accident and really uh, your life changing?
Yeah, yeah. So like you said, I was playing rugby most years at UMB, and I was part of the club rugby team. And again, I was one of those guys that was not the not the best guy in the team, but I was pretty good. And I remember, I got called up for the Maritime Championships in my last game, and I set up a try, and I got a couple big tackles. And I remember, this was a really, really good way to end my rugby career, because every time I'm out here, I'm 170 pounds soaking wet up against these big full-on men, and I'm just getting the snot kicked out of me. And I said, you know what? There's other things I like to do, and this was a good way to end it. So I said, I'm going in my last year at UMB, and there's other things I like to do. I like to bike. I like to camp. I like to be away on the weekends. And all fall, which is a beautiful time to be at UMB, and there's other people, friends that I had who would be out mountain biking and doing all these things. And I was, at the rugby pitch getting beat up, and then I had black eyes and was sore for the next week, so I couldn't really do anything. And then all of a sudden it was November and it was snowing. And yeah, so I said, all right, I'll do my last year at UMB and not do that and do some of these other things. And it was October 2nd, and I just went rock climbing at a spot that was, it's Wellsford. It's a climbing area. It's halfway between St. John and Fredericton along that old highway. There's a golf course there, and then behind it, there's a bunch of
Yeah.
crags of rock. And there was a lot of, it's a real developed climbing area. It's the only real area in New Brunswick where people go to climb regularly. And there's routes set and anchors set, and there's a spine board on site. There's trails. There's mapped. It's really a cool spot. Even if you get to go hike there, it's a really neat spot to go and kind of climb around, even if you're not doing rock climbing per se. So I went there, and it was a beautiful Sunday, and I went with my best friend, who's my roommate at the time, and just, I was an experienced woodsman. I was good at climbing, but I was kind of new to the sport. I was testing my limits, just getting into it. I guess, like I was leading kids climbing. I was leading kids rappelling, but it was completely different. But for me, again, just kind of that mindset of trying to push myself, trying to improve, and maybe someday be one of these guys that was actually climbing some of the epic climbing routes in the world. Like that's where my mind was going. It was like I was reading the climbing magazines, thinking, oh, I could go down the Yosemite. Oh, I could go, over to France and into the Alps. Like it was that's kind of where my mind went. And so I was trying to push myself and hone my craft, but things didn't work out too well. I was just climbing a route I'd climbed before, but I was trying to do it with some, I guess they call it traditional climbing, where you're setting your own anchors. And I set an anchor and I climbed above it. And I remember thinking, I'm not feeling the greatest. I might have to bail halfway through this route, but I couldn't find a good spot to set my anchors. And the last one that I had set below me, and I was a few feet, I was probably 7 feet above it at the time. And I said, I'm not sure if that'll hold. And before I got a chance to find a good anchor, my hand slipped. So I had put all my weight down on that anchor. That wasn't a great anchor because I wasn't really, when you're climbing, sometimes there's a good chance I'm going to fall. And sometimes you're like, oh, that's good enough. I'm probably not going to fall. I'm going to keep going. Well, this was an anchor. I was kind of like, oh, I'm probably not going to fall. It's good enough. Let's keep going. And it wasn't good enough. So I pulled it out of the wall and hit a ledge before my rope caught me, and landed like on the back of my head and my shoulders. And that was that. So that just led to a massive rescue. Really, I'm lucky to be alive, because by the time I hit the ledge and my rope caught me, I'd fallen probably a good 40 feet. So it's right on my head. So it wasn't good. So yeah, lucky that it was a Sunday and there's a lot of climbers there.
The day and weeks and months after the accident, what goes through your mind at that point in your life, and what were you thinking, and what were you feeling in those moments, and especially the quiet moments?
Yeah, I felt pretty guilty, to be honest. I felt like I really took pride in taking care of myself, and I think that was kind of one of the things I was really discovering about myself. Was I like to be able to kind of, was a master of my own domain. I could kind of go and figure all this stuff out and put myself into these situations and take care of myself, and to impose this change, this massive change. It wasn't only on me, but that affected everybody around me. My parents, my parents had enough to deal with. I have a sister with a cognitive disability and another two family members, and their life was hard enough. They didn't have, now they had to deal with this guy in a wheelchair. It was just, I just felt really bad about myself, and I felt guilty and I felt ashamed. And I also, wasn't obviously thrilled about the fact that I was going to have to figure out how to live with this disability. But there was a lot of shame and a lot of guilt mixed in with that. It was complicated for sure.
People talk about their mental health and the importance of that, mentally, when you realize that you'd have limited mobility in your hands, but you could still lift yourself up, and you'd have the tricep muscles. When did you start thinking about, okay, this is my life now, this is how I'm going to have to live? And that love of sport was still there, but it would obviously be different now.
Yeah, that took a while. It's really, when you have an acquired spinal cord injury, a lot of the references that you look to kind of calibrate what to expect in your life, are around paraplegics and people who certainly have a lot more function than I do. Like you said, I'm a quadriplegic. My hands don't really work that great, but I can move my hand a little bit. I have really strong arms considering, but it's, but really, so I have enough function maybe to compare myself to a quadriplegic, and, or not to a quadriplegic, to a paraplegic. And I see these guys that are out there doing these incredible things. I see these guys who are, sit skiing off the cliffs in the mountains. I see guys who are, kayaking down rivers. I see all of this cool stuff. And I'm like, wow, maybe I could do all of those things. But then as I start to try some of these things, I'm realizing, oh, wait, I'm not that able. Like, I'm just not, like, I'm not going to be able to do it in that same way. So for a long time, I was trying to figure out how to do all of those activities that I love so much, but in a different way. I was trying to kayak. I was trying to get into the woods. I was trying to do all of these things. And it was just really hard. And I needed a whole lot of help to be able to do it. And it didn't bring that sense of independence and that freedom that I was looking for. And because of that, and because it was so hard, and I needed so much help, and I was a really proud guy that didn't like asking for help. I never did. I really just stopped doing sport. I stopped taking care of myself, and I focused all of my energy on just providing a stable income and life for myself, so I could just take care of myself. That was my focus for the first 5 years. So I finished my engineering degree because I still had a year left to do with that. I got I got hurt in 2005. 2006, I dedicated to finishing my degree. By 2007, I was looking for a job, and by 2008, I was working at a consulting engineering firm with my first real job, trying to figure out how to navigate that. So, and I just went all in, and for the first 5 years working at that, 4 or 5 years working at that engineering firm, that was my complete focus, just getting ahead there. So, I didn't take care of myself at all, but I did eventually realize, okay, I need to find something here. I need to do something to get back into shape, to have a little bit of fun, because my mental health was not good at all. I never really addressed maybe some of the demons that came with after I got hurt. I just kind of plowed through life and just kind of struggled. And I think there's this moment in your life where, and I think I've talked to a lot of people about this, where, once you kind of have once you've stabilized, once you have like a stable existence, like you talk about the midlife crisis, right? That's when you're good at your job, right? Job's not really hard anymore. Everything's, you've had your kids, they're growing up a little bit maybe, but then all of a sudden you're just left there thinking like, why? Everything's good, but why do I just feel crappy? It's because you're not pushing yourself anymore. So I needed to find a way to push myself, and I got into wheelchair rugby, and that was fun. And I really enjoyed that. But wheelchair rugby in New Brunswick, there's, you get to practice maybe, if you practice once a week with a bunch of guys, you're lucky, and you have to drive to all the different cities in the province to get together because there's only a handful of us playing. So I really needed a sport that I could play on my own, and that's when I got into cycling. And once I could train on my own and kind of just pursue that with independently, and it was really liberating for me, and I kind of went all in on it, obviously. So yeah.
Well, we're going to be right back. We're going to take a quick break, but stay with us here on Sports Inclusive. Welcome back to Sports Inclusive, here with Matt Kinnie, the president of Parasport here in New Brunswick. Matt, we've talked about your journey. Maybe just tell the folks at home your journey in parasport and cycling, and trying to qualify and continuing to qualify and be a world-class athlete at the Paralympics and beyond.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey. I've been really cycling at a competitive level since, I've been biking recreationally a little bit on my own, but since 2014, I've been taking it quite seriously. And yeah, there's been a lot of ups and downs, and a lot of, you had to persevere quite a bit throughout those years to stick with it. With me being a quadriplegic, there's a lot of equipment involved with trying to figure out how to, brake and shift your gears with limited hand function, and be safe on the bike. But then, also just be able to push your body to the levels that need to be to compete at that highest level. It's unbelievable for me, this far into it, having some success. I went to Peru in 2019 at the Para-Pan Am Games, and that was a real highlight for me to go to this major games experience and walk away with a gold medal there was pretty amazing. But a month before that actually was what I see as a bigger achievement, because I finished fourth in a World Cup against all the best cyclists in the world, right? Para-Pan Ams is only our zone. But there's a lot of good cyclists around the world, and to finish fourth in the world, that was a huge accomplishment for me. So, I've had some success. I went to the World Championships here last year in Portugal, coming out of a COVID year, coming out of, a year, almost a year and a half of not, just kind of being in this, holding pattern, not knowing what was coming up next, and to get to go to the World Championships. And again, against the best riders in the world, finish fourth. That was, it confirmed for me that wasn't a fluke, and that I am right there with the best. And I actually did improve kind of my gap to the podium. That's something we're always measuring, is the gap to the podium, and see that I am progressing and getting closer. That's amazing. But it wasn't quite good enough to make it to the Paralympics, which was 2 months after the World Championships. The way that they do it is we qualify spots for the Paralympics, and the team selects the best medal potential, which they see as the best medal potential for those spots. And I was the alternate. I was one spot off making the team. So that was tough. And we actually had some athletes who went, who had some classification challenges and stuff like that, and didn't compete in all the events. So it was a real struggle for me, I guess, at that moment, to see, just to see that I had a shot there. I was an alternate, but because it happened so close at the games, it wasn't like before the games, it happened at the games, I never really got that shot. So anyways, but it kind of lights a fire for 3 years from now. It's a short cycle to get to the next Paralympics, right? So it's 2024, and because of the COVID year, it's right around the corner.
Obviously, your parents and your family has had a tremendous impact. Maybe just discuss your family now and the inspiration that you draw from Melanie and the girls.
Yeah, like it's, they're my biggest supporters. It takes a lot of time away from the family, and I've heard other people say that. You watch these interviews and you see the pros say, "Oh, the sacrifice and all this stuff," but it really, until the past few years, I didn't realize what they really meant by that. And every time I go out and ride my bike, I'm making a choice where I'm not with the family, and I'm trying to do it all. I'm trying to be a good dad. I'm trying to be a good husband. I'm trying to, still have a full-time job and do all of those things. And often I'll sit there and think, like, really, is it worth it? Like, should I be doing this? And I asked Melanie, I'm like, like, you say no, and I'll stop. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to do this unless you're on board. And, every time she says, well, no, like, you have to try. You're so close. You put this much time into it. Let's keep going. And the girls just love when I come home with a medal, or, they always ask. And, the big promise is that they get to go to Paris. So I'm going to do this all for 3 years, and we all get a trip to go to Paris. This COVID stuff better be over, because I had a few friends on the team who made the same promise to their families, and they couldn't go to Tokyo because of everything, obviously. So hopefully it's all done by then, and we can get a big trip out of it. I think hopefully I'm teaching them something too, with the hard work and the perseverance. Hopefully it's not just, I try to justify it so it's not completely selfish, right? But it is a little bit selfish ultimately, but hopefully it's all worth it.
You talked about your career away from the track. That career changed in 2018, 2019. Discuss your role with Tango Medical.
Yeah, they brought me on to be part of their executive team. I have a disability, and they sell equipment to people like me, and seniors and stuff like that. So I'm part of the team that helps set the tone for the organization, and do kind of operations improvement and things like that. It was a big change to leave the engineering field, the hardcore engineering field, but I really like this as a good fit. It aligns well with who I am. Having a disability was always kind of a bit of a barrier in the engineering world, and it's nice to be part of an organization where it's an asset. So I'm really enjoying it. I'm learning a lot, and hopefully bringing value there too. So.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk about your journey, Matt. You're an inspiration. Continued success in everything that you do, and best of luck in your pursuit of the Paralympics.
Yeah, thanks, Craig. It was fun chatting with you.